I think we're good.
Jason, you all good?
Yeah, we're good. We'll start letting them in.
Okay, let's do it. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out and joining us for the everything you need to know about your rights to service animals. My name is Steve Freeman. I'm the Director of Communications for the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council. And today is Wednesday, September 28th, 2022. Now is a great time to check your audio settings. To activate the closed captioning, please select the CC button at the bottom of the Zoom window. To pin the ASL interpreter, click More by their name in the participants list and click Pin. To kick things off, you can go ahead and use the chat function to share a little bit about yourself. I'm going to move into some Zoom guidelines right now. This chat is a space to share stories, questions, or resources. If you share a question on the chat, it will eventually be read aloud by one of the hosts. Please ask questions during the Q&A portion of the presentation so that we can keep track of them. Assume good faith from your colleagues. We all here to learn together. Please recognize and respect others' feelings, background, and cultural differences. Everyone has a different experience, and everyone's experience is important. Please use the chat or raise hand function if you wish to share verbally. To raise your hand, click on the reactions button at the bottom of the meeting screen, and then click raise hand. If you are on the phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. Again, we ask you that you wait until the Q&A portion of the meeting to do so. If you are speaking, please speak slowly as we have ASL and closed captioners working with us today. And try to limit yourself to 30 seconds or less. It can be just as courageous to listen as it is to share. Let me move right on to introductions. I'd like to introduce Brenda Renew. She's the author of the Life with Service Dogs blogs and has worked with many disabilities organizations since 2007. We will put a link to her blog in the chat as it contains lots of resources. Brenda is currently a board member for the Foundation for Service Dog Support, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about that. She previously worked with the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council and contributed to the council's Service Dog blog. She has been a service dog trainer for many years and has been a service dog user since 2010, which allows her to be much more active in the community. Today, she will be serving as our moderator. Believe it or not, the #1 requested item for information at the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council is, you guessed it, service dogs. That is why we thought it was important to develop this webinar to address this issue. Thank you, Brenda, for being our moderator. Go ahead and take it away, Brenda.
Thank you, Steve, for reminding us to be our best selves as we engage in today's webinar. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Brenda Renaud. It's my genuine pleasure to welcome you to our Service Dog webinar. September is National Service Dog Month, a time to recognize the dogs that oftentimes make it possible for individuals with disabilities to live independently in their communities. If you've been considering adding a service dog to your family or are simply curious about why you see so many service dogs, emotional support animals, and therapy dogs out and about, here's the deal. What makes a service dog different from a pet dog, therapy dog, or emotional support dog, you ask? Here are 5 things to know about service dogs. #1, a service dog is not a pet. A service dog is a working dog that is individually trained to perform specific tasks for an individual with a disability. #2, a service dog can learn to perform 50 to 60 tasks and commands. A service dog can flip a light switch, push elevator buttons, open doors, and retrieve items like dropped cell phones or medications from the refrigerator even. A hearing dog can alert its partner to sounds like a knock on the door, a smoke detector alarm, an alarm clock, a car horn, and their name being called. A service dog is trained to behave well in public. It will walk on a leash without pulling or straining, does not bark unless asked to speak, and ignores distractions. It's quiet and unobtrusive unless performing specific task work. People partnered with a service dog have all the same rights and access as any other person according to the Americans with Disabilities Act. This includes entry into restaurants, shops, and places where dogs are typically not allowed to go. Always ask the owner before approaching a service dog. Any form of distraction can be disruptive to their working relationship. According to the Americans with Disabilities Act, a service dog are individually trained to do work or perform tasks for the benefit of an individual with a disability, including a physical, sensory, psychiatric, intellectual, or other mental disability. Per the ADA, people with disabilities are permitted to take their service dogs just about everywhere they go, including stores, restaurants, schools, airplanes, etc. I am a member of the board of the Foundation for Service Dog Support. We provide training for service dog teams and education about the role and responsibilities of service dogs in public spaces. We also serve first responders and veterans regardless of where or when they served or what their needs are. We are the only state-approved master service dog trainer apprenticeship program in the US, and we were recently awarded the 2022 Certificate of Special Congressional Recognition for our service to the community. The foundation also serves our community in other ways. We offer canine first aid, canine good citizenship, and canine CPR certificate classes, as well as beginner, intermediate, and advanced canine obedience training for all interested pet owners. Our apprenticeship academy graduates students to help ensure our services into the future. The Foundation for Service Dog Support is proud to serve this community, and through our evaluator and affiliate networks, ensure that regardless of where the service dog team may go, they can function to the highest, most effective standards for as long as they're together. You can find more information on this amazing foundation at servicedogsupport.org. So today's featured presenter is Corey Lovato. Corey grew up in Colorado before moving to California for law school, then settling in Phoenix in late 2016. He worked at a nonprofit serving low-income veterans before joining the Arizona Center for Disability Law in the summer of 2018, and is passionate about utilizing his law degree to make a difference for the underserved and underprivileged. When he's not working, Corey can be found at the gym or out exploring Phoenix. He enjoys using his free time to explore new places and try new things, which we all should do more of. We will have a Q&A session after Corey's presentation. We also ask that you complete the webinar survey. We sincerely appreciate your honest feedback. So let's hear it from Corey.
All right. Thank you, Brenda, for that great intro. Brenda and Stephen, both. So as Brenda mentioned, I'm Corey Lovato. I work for the Arizona Center for Disability Law. We are a nonprofit law firm that provides free legal services for people with disabilities. And we also serve as the protection and advocacy system in Arizona, for those of you who are familiar with the P&As. Anyway, today we're going to go through everything you need to know about your rights to a service animal. Without further ado, I say we jump right in. There we go. All right. Minor panic. All right. So we need to define our terms here with service dogs and emotional support animals to get started. So a lot of people will have questions about both of these things. And I want to go through again and just kind of make sure we know what we're talking about when we refer to one or the other. So a service animal has a pretty good hard and fast legal definition that is mostly the same under all of the different laws that cover it. And that is a dog that has been individually trained to do work or perform tasks for an individual with a disability. Worth noting here that the tasks performed by the dog have to be directly related to the person's disability. And that this definition, word for word, the one that I put up there, comes from the ADA, comes from Title II of the ADA, which applies to state and local governments. The number of the other laws, as we'll see in a minute, don't necessarily define a service animal as hard and fast, but as a general rule, if you have a service animal under that title of the ADA, you're probably going to have a service animal under any of the other laws also. So a couple examples, I'm sure you're all fairly aware of a lot of these, but service animals can do a lot of really incredible, varied things. There's seeing eye dogs is probably the classic example, right? Being able to guide a person who is blind. There are seizure alert dogs that can sense when someone with any kind of medical condition that makes them prone to seizures. There are seizure alert dogs that can sense that basically and alert the person when they're about to have a seizure or assist the person when they are having a seizure. PTSD dogs that can go and one of the common things for PTSD is to do what's called a go check, where the dog will go up ahead, it'll look around a corner to see if there's any kind of unexpected person or obstacle or something there that may trigger PTSD for someone who's going around a blind corner, if that's an issue. Those PTSD dogs can do that. PTSD dogs can do that, go and usually will sit or bark or give some kind of alert if there's something there. Self-abusive dogs are big. So this is some people with developmental disabilities or autism can occasionally engage in some kind of self-abusive or self-hitting behavior. And there are service dogs that can put a stop to that. There are blood sugar alert dogs. So say someone with diabetes, when their blood sugar gets a bit low, dogs can actually smell that and pick up on it. So they can alert the person that their blood sugar is a bit low and it's time to take some medication. Really, I could go on and on about all the crazy things that service animals do, or that service dogs do rather. They're an absolutely indispensable tool that allow a lot of people to really live their full lives. An emotional support animal, on the other hand, is an animal that is not necessarily individually trained. It's an animal, excuse me, it's an animal that just provides comfort by being with a person. So an ESA, an emotional support animal, has not been trained to perform a specific job or task for the person with a disability. And it's worth noting here that I say emotional support animal, a lot of other people will use terms like a therapy dog, or sometimes we might say like a comfort animal, a companion animal, something like that. These are all kind of, I'm referring to all of these as emotional support animals, just any kind of dog or animal that's not individually trained for the benefit of a person with a disability. And I say that because it's generally not a legal term, an emotional support animal or a therapy dog or anything. They're not recognized in any of the laws the way that the service dogs have, that, again, that hard and fast definition that comes from the regulations, from the ADA regulations. There's no comparable definition of an emotional support animal or a therapy animal or anything like that. The only law that covers them specifically is the Fair Housing Act. There are a few other times where you might be able to have an emotional support animal, most prevalently in employment, although that is a bit more difficult. The Fair Housing Act is where you would really have the strongest argument to have an emotional support animal. But we'll go through that in a sec. A couple examples of things that emotional support animals can do are, say, being a companion animal to someone who has depression and anxiety. Sometimes just hanging out with an animal or a dog can do wonders for mitigating the effects of depression and anxiety in particular, a number of different disabilities, but those two for sure. There's also calming and comfort dogs. Again, this is, think of maybe someone who has autism that can get kind of the sensory or the comfort of being with a dog that can help the person to calm down. Sometimes it can help the person to sleep. A lot of different benefits that, the dog or animal, I should say, doesn't necessarily need to be individually trained for. So there are a few different laws that cover all of the different emotional support animal and service animal aspects, I guess. We're going to be, again, focusing mostly on service dogs. And to do that, we're going to go through four big laws, or four big areas, I should say, with some kind of subsections. And the first big one is the big one, the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. This is the one that everyone kind of thinks of when they think of any kind of disability rights. And it's broken down into 5 different parts. But for our purposes, the first 3 are the ones that we really want to pay attention to. Title I has to do with employment. So your rights to have a service dog at work. Title II is state and local government services. So that covers any service program or activity from a state and local government. And then Title III is public accommodations. And that's basically a way of just saying like businesses that are open to the public for the most part. All 3 of those different ADA titles have slightly different requirements for service dogs and emotional support animals, actually, but for mainly service dogs, which is a bit counterintuitive. You would think the ADA, it's the same law, so why would it have any difference? But it does. The Fair Housing Act would be the second big area. That's the one, again, where you have the strongest argument to have an ESA. The Air Carriers Access Act is my least favorite law. That has to do with airlines and, flying places. It's a little more niche than these other ones. It only applies to the times when you're like on a plane or in the immediate area in the airport that the airline controls. But it's important because, a lot of people with service animals need to fly places, and the rules are a little different. A lot of people are not super familiar with that. And then finally, just a couple of state law caveats where Arizona has added some stuff to help with service animal stuff. So as I mentioned a minute ago, all these different laws have different definitions. And that pertains most prominently to the service dog definition itself. Like, which of these laws define what a service dog is? So Title I for employment does not have a definition for a service dog. Title II does, and that's the one, again, that is strongest. That comes from an actual regulation that's cited there. Title III of the ADA, yes, it does have a service dog definition, but it's not in the law or regulations. The DOJ, which is like the federal government's law firm, basically, they're in charge of sort of interpreting federal law and issuing guidance. And this guidance that they issue, it doesn't have the same kind of force of law the way that a regulation would, but a lot of courts will look at it and say, we're going to follow the DOJ guidance because that's kind of their job. So for Title III, there is a definition of a service dog in guidance that's been issued by the DOJ. Air Carriers Access Act, same thing, except the guidance comes from the Department of Transportation because they're the federal agency that kind of has oversight on that. And then the Fair Housing Act, same thing, yes. There is a service dog definition, but it comes from guidance, and that guidance is from HUD, which is a federal agency that oversees the Fair Housing Act. And that one is a bit more broad. That includes service animals and emotional support animals, and that definition is termed assistance animals for that reason. So we'll get into that also. But starting with Title I, which has to do with employment, this is one of the 2 biggest areas, along with housing, that I would say comes up when it comes to really any kind of disability rights issues, but service dogs in particular. Worth noting that there's no automatic right to have a service animal at work. That's odd for a lot of people because, a lot of these other laws, there is an automatic right. Like, say you have a service dog and you want to go to a restaurant or see a movie or something like that, or go to a park or a museum. Any of that is covered under the different titles of the ADA, and you can show up with your service dog. You don't need to ask anyone's permission. You may have to answer 2 questions having to do with the dog. We'll get into those later, but there's no one can tell you no, and you don't need to send a request in advance. But at work, it is granted as what's called a reasonable accommodation, which is a big part of Title I. We'll get into that again in a sec. Come back to everything here. We're just doing a general overview. And again, there's no service animal definition under Title I. So can it include emotional support animals? Maybe. It depends on what you can, I guess, argue or what you can get as a reasonable accommodation. And then the other big thing is, or a big question, I guess, is whether this applies only to dogs. Because service animal, again, can be a lot of different animals, but that definition under Title II of the ADA, if we go back a couple slides, says dog. It says a dog that has been individually trained to do or to perform a task for the benefit of a person with a disability. And then there's some other criteria that the employer has to reach. The biggest one is that they have to have 15 or more employees. Nothing is worse than having an employer that discriminates against someone, and then that person comes to us or comes to me at ACDL, and I have to say, you know, you work for a small mom and pop operation and they shouldn't be discriminating against you, but unfortunately the law doesn't cover businesses or employers, I should say, that are that small. So that's worth noting as well. So we got to define reasonable accommodation before we can really get into this. A reasonable accommodation, apologies for the wall of words on here. I try not to do that too often, but I wanted to give the actual definition from the law. A reasonable accommodation is a modification or adjustment to a job, the work environment, or the way things are usually done during the hiring process. Basically, it's a change in the rules. It's a change in the rules that's done for the benefit of a person with a disability to be able to work or apply to a job or what have you on par with their non-disabled coworkers, their non-disabled peers. So for a service dog, the biggest, the most obvious rule would be no animals in the workplace, no dogs in the workplace. That is true for most people, but if you have a service animal, as Brenda was saying, that's not a pet. That is it's medical equipment, technically. So you're allowed to take a service animal, or you're allowed to request a service animal as a reasonable accommodation. Emotional support animal, again, that's a little harder. But if you can make an argument that your emotional support animal is necessary for you to function on par with your non-disabled peers, and if it's not it doesn't fall into any of the categories, I guess, that the employer could use to say no, then you could make that argument. You could potentially get an emotional support animal as a reasonable accommodation at work. It is more difficult than a service animal, though. So if you want to make a reasonable accommodation request, what do you do? These are the best practices and the stuff that I would recommend that everyone do, regardless of whether it's a service animal accommodation or not. If you're getting any kind of accommodation at work, this is the way to do it. But for service animal stuff, for sure, follow these 4 things in particular. Number 1, the most important, write it down. Have it send it in an email or write it in a letter. Have some kind of documentation that you requested this accommodation. This happens all the time, that people will request an accommodation. They'll do it verbally to their supervisor or someone at HR maybe, and it gets kind of passed around, or maybe is eventually denied. And then there's an argument about later, well, did you really request it? Did you really need it? It's all that you can avoid all of that if you just write it down. Just write down what you're asking and give it to your employer. The second one is kind of following on that line. Make sure there's a date on it. Email, this is no problem because that's going to be timestamped. But again, if it comes down to, say, the employer is taking months to decide whether they want to grant the accommodation or not, it really, really helps to have a date on there to say, look, here's when I requested it. Because a lot of the times, of the cases that we get, employers will say, well, no, you didn't really request that accommodation. There'll be some arguing about the date, like, no, you didn't do it on this date, you did it on some other date. So write the date on there, just avoid that. Documentation is sometimes needed if your disability is non-obvious, or if your disability related need for the service dog is non-obvious. So say someone has PTSD and has a dog that does the go checks. You would probably need to provide some documentation of your disability, of your PTSD, and a disability related need for the dog. So how does the service dog help you to avoid whatever it is that you need to avoid, the symptoms of your disability? That being said, you don't necessarily need to disclose your entire medical record. You probably don't even need to disclose the particular diagnosis. You could just have a doctor say, my patient has a condition that causes her to experience X and Y symptoms. The dog helps because it does, whatever it does to help with X and Y symptoms. Therefore, my patient would benefit from a service animal. But you really don't even need the doctor to say that. You only need the doctor to say, my patient has a condition that causes her to experience, or him or her to experience X and Y symptoms. And then from there, you can make the argument, look, the dog helps with those symptoms, so that's why I need it. Final big tip is to use the words reasonable accommodation. Like, say you're requesting a reasonable accommodation. Don't hide the ball. Because again, that gets to a fight later where people will say, you didn't request a reasonable accommodation. If you say that that's what you're requesting, they can't argue that. Once you submit a reasonable accommodation request, that kicks off what's called the interactive process. And that's basically supposed to be a conversation between the employee and the employer, trying to find the most appropriate accommodation for that employee to be able to be productive. So as part of the interactive process, you're supposed to have kind of a back and forth with the employer to see if that accommodation would work, your requested accommodation, and if it wouldn't, are there any alternative accommodations that could work? This doesn't always happen. Some employers, unfortunately, will deny a reasonable accommodation and just kind of leave it at that. They're supposed to explore alternative accommodations with you, or give, at least reasons, like compelling reasons, which again, we'll get into in a minute, for why they're denying the accommodation. And then again, the undue burden, financial hardship. There are 4 categories basically that an employer can claim for denying an accommodation request, but those are kind of the big ones. So once you request a reasonable accommodation, there's kind of a flow chart, like what happens. First, the burden is on the employee or the person requesting the accommodation. Is it reasonable? The reasonableness standard is easy to prove if something is like ordinary, basically. So you have an ordinary request, say you have a service dog and you want to bring the service dog to work. There are a number of different service dogs that are kind of recognized as like, this is the type of stuff that a service dog does. This is a type of thing that is definitely a disability. And this is typically the type of cases that end up in court a lot. Those are the ordinary ones. If something is not ordinary, say it's like an exotic lizard that you want as an emotional support animal that you want to bring to work, that one's there. The employer may have a better argument saying that's not reasonable. It's still fact specific. Every part of this is fact specific. It's specific about the dog, specific about the disability, specific about the type of job and the job duties. All of that kind of goes into whether something is reasonable or not. A service animal in a construction site is different than a service animal in an office. But generally, that's how the first step goes. Once the person makes that request, the burden then shifts to the employer. Okay, employer, can you show that the accommodation is unreasonable? And 2 and 3 I've separated them out as steps on here, but they're really kind of the same step. Because in order to show that something is unreasonable, that an accommodation request is unreasonable, the employer would have to say, look, or would have to show that that accommodation is an undue hardship, basically that it's too burdensome for them to implement as an accommodation, a financial burden, that it's too expensive for them to implement, a fundamental alteration. So think a dog at a construction site that could fundamentally alter the nature of the construction site, not necessarily, but it could. And then a direct threat. So say the dog's going around biting people. That's a direct threat. You can't have that, a dog that's a threat to the coworkers or the public or whoever it is. Fair Housing Act is similar to Title I, in that it's also a reasonable accommodation from your housing provider to get an assistance animal. That's kind of the key difference, though, is that term assistance animal rather than service animal. Assistance animal is broader. It includes service animals and ESAs. It's also not limited solely to dogs. So recall that that ADA definition of a service dog or of a service animal was limited to dogs. It said a dog that's individually trained. Assistance animals are not. assistance animal can be a lot of different kinds of animals. But again, it still has to be granted as a reasonable accommodation. Reasonable accommodation under the Fair Housing Act, pretty similar to the ADA reasonable accommodation. It's a change to a rule or policy that's necessary to provide an equal opportunity to use and enjoy a dwelling. That's the only really key difference, is that it's an equal opportunity to use and enjoy a dwelling versus an equal opportunity to basically work the same job. So who does the Fair Housing Act apply to? Two sides to this, right? There's the person requesting it, and that isn't just like a tenant at an apartment complex. That's kind of what comes to mind most intuitively, but it can be a homeowner. If you have like an HOA that has a rule, say you own a home, but you live in a community that has a no dogs rule, or they have like a lot of subdivisions will have like those little common area, like a clubhouse type thing. Say they have a no dog rule there. You can request reasonable accommodations for whatever entity, or to whatever entity is in charge of that stuff, to take the service dog into those areas. Worth noting, this also covers prospective homeowners. So say you want to like take your service dog out to like look at an apartment. You're house searching, or you're trying to move somewhere, and they say, no, we're not going to let you take your service dog because it's a service dog. We have a no dog policy. They can't do that. It also covers family members and people with disabilities who are associated with a tenant, homeowner, prospective homeowner, what have you. So say you have a family member who wants to come and use the common areas or go in no dog areas or whatever. That family member is still covered under the Fair Housing Act to be able to take their service dog into those places. Worth noting that it still may need to be an accommodation, a reasonable accommodation, but you have a right to request that. And there is a little bit of overlap here with the Fair Housing Act and the ADA that I just want to briefly kind of mention, that if there's part of a housing complex that is like open to the public, that would be covered under the ADA rather than the Fair Housing Act. So the big example of this is, again, like the clubhouse type thing. Say there's a clubhouse that is rented out to like the Boy Scouts or something, and they meet there on Wednesdays. Then in that instance, that clubhouse is functioning more as like a public accommodation. So it'd be under Title III of the ADA that applied to businesses, rather than the Fair Housing Act, since it's not being used as like part of the housing complex. Whereas if it was a clubhouse that was not open to the public, it's only available to residents and people that live there, then that one would be covered by the Fair Housing Act. On the other side of that, you have housing providers. So what's a housing provider? It can be a landlord, but it can also be an HOA, and then it can be a number of other maybe less intuitive type places also, like homeless shelters, group homes, nursing homes, dorms, pretty much anywhere where someone lives and makes that area their home. That's kind of the big test. The I don't know what I would call them, the fringe cases, I guess, the cases that are kind of on the fence, that can go one way or the other, are typically like RV parks or hotel, motel. RV parks, if it's short term, if you're there for like a week and you're just staying and camping and then you're taking off, that's probably going to be covered under the ADA. But if it's a place where, say, you have your RV, you like rent month to month, you have like a plot of land, that's more likely going to be covered by the Fair Housing Act. And then with hotels, it's the same kind of thing. If it's like a short-term stay, that's probably covered by the ADA, or typically covered by the ADA. So say, you're just going on a trip somewhere, you're staying for the weekend at a Holiday Inn, or even for like a week or whatever, a couple of weeks, 2 weeks, still going to be covered by the ADA. But say you're at one of those like long-term motels, like those extended stay places, and you're planning to be there and stay there for months. Now that looks more like a home. It's probably going to be covered by the Fair Housing Act. And again, this covers common areas as well. So what do you do for the Fair Housing Act? Reasonable accommodation. And the great thing is that HUD has released some guidance on this that really helps to kind of show what is a reasonable accommodation and what isn't. But to kind of start on that, the type of assistance animal is the first, I don't know, question, I guess. If it meets the definition of a service dog under the ADA, that's generally going to be a reasonable accommodation. If it's an emotional support animal under the Fair Housing Act, it's still probably going to be a reasonable accommodation, but it's less clear and gets less clear the more kind of exotic that animal gets. So again, you have like your emotional support iguana or something, or your peacock, and you want to keep that in your home as a reasonable accommodation. That gets harder than saying I have an emotional support dog that I want to keep as a reasonable accommodation. Emotional support dog is typically a lot easier as long as, again, that animal does some kind of, or has some kind of benefit to a person with a disability because of the disability, like a disability related benefit. As far as documentation goes, do you need to provide documentation to your housing provider? That's kind of a big question that we get. So if you have an obvious disability, the answer is no. You are supposed to be able to just have a service animal. Say you show up in a wheelchair, or you have some kind of obvious orthopedic impairment or something like that. Your housing provider shouldn't be able to say, look, you need to prove that you have a disability. It's obvious. If it's a non-obvious disability, like a lot of mental health disabilities, then yes, you may need to provide some documentation in order to have a reasonable accommodation for the assistance animal. But again, it's limited to show that documentation would be limited to, number one, show that you have a disability. And then number two, show the disability related need for that should be assistance animal, not service animal, but for that animal anyway. As far as oh, never mind, I jumped around. That was a service animal one. For emotional support animal documentation, again, obvious disability, the answer is still generally no, but for an emotional support animal, remember, those are not trained to help with someone's particular disability. So a lot of the time, if you're trying to get an emotional support animal, no matter what, you are going to need to provide some documentation. You'll need to show a disability related need for the emotional support animal, basically. And worth noting, the one difference, or the one big difference between the Fair Housing Act and Title I with employment is that interactive process where there's supposed to be a conversation, a back and forth between the person requesting the accommodation and the entity granting it. The interactive process is not strictly required for the Fair Housing Act. It is required for employment. But housing providers, if they decide they don't want to do the interactive process, they sort of proceed at their own risk. So if something goes wrong later, they can't go back and say, oh, well, we tried our best. If it looks like, you made a reasonable accommodation request and they said no, and just kind of shut the conversation down, it's not going to look good for the housing provider later if it turns out that they were wrong. And then the last thing that I just wanted to touch is that you should not be paying any fees, any pet fees, any rent fees, any whatever for assistance animals. There's one exception to that. That would be any damage that the animal causes. You could be liable for that, but the general kind of pet fees and stuff like that, you can't charge those for assistance animals. That applies to both service animals and emotional support animals, assuming that they have been granted as a reasonable accommodation. And if someone is charging fees at first, if a housing provider is charging you fees at first, you make a reasonable accommodation request, you get the service animal or ESA granted as a reasonable accommodation. Usually you can then go back and say, look, if you charged me fees before for this, I should get a refund because this was a service animal the whole time, assuming that it was, or an emotional support animal the whole time, and make that argument to the housing provider. So the reasonable accommodation analysis is going to look pretty familiar. For the Fair Housing Act, starts out, is the burden or is the accommodation reasonable? Burden is on the tenant. What makes it reasonable? Is it ordinary? This is covered very well in the HUD guidance, which is linked at the end of this slideshow. But it's essentially the exact same analysis as the Title I employment accommodation request. The burden, once you show that it's a reasonable accommodation, it shifts to the housing provider to show that it's unreasonable. How do they show that it's unreasonable? That last one should say burden on housing provider, not tenant. But they can show that it's unreasonable if it's an undue hardship, financial burden, fundamental alteration, or direct threat. that works for any accommodation request, but for service animals in particular, I would say the one that usually pops up the most is direct threat, where a housing provider will say that, your dog is dangerous, it barked at me or something like that. That's a fairly high threshold to show that something is a direct threat. The dog just, barking at someone is probably not going to do it. The dog even growling at someone is probably not going to do it. The dog, even in some court cases, the dog taking a nip at someone and biting them didn't do it. I would caution heavily on that last one, that if your dog is biting people or has bitten someone, they probably have a pretty good direct threat argument. But I just want to mention it because I think the fact that there are court cases out there where a dog, a service dog, or an emotional support animal has bitten someone, and the court has still said it was a one-time incident, or maybe there was, aggravating factors or whatever was going on. It didn't meet the direct threat threshold. That's how high it is. So going back to the ADA, we're going to shift gears now. Fair Housing Act I covered right after ADA employment because they're very similar. But ADA Titles 2 and 3, we're going to run through those together because those are pretty similar also. A little bit different than the other two though. So Title 2 applies to state and local government services. And this covers all services, programs, or activities that are administered by any state or local government. So this is places that are owned by the government. So think courthouses, museums, city hall, but also services that they provide. So like getting on and off buses, going to school, voting, all that stuff that is that's run by a state and local government is covered by Title II. Worth noting here that it does not apply to volunteer programs. So if you're volunteering with a state government or a local government, you are not covered by the ADA, at least in Arizona. And it also doesn't apply to employment because employment is covered again by Title I that we went over earlier. Worth noting that the ADA in general does not apply to the federal government. They have their own separate law called the Rehab Act, the Rehabilitation Act. I don't cover that in here because it's very, very similar to the ADA. But just something to know that if you're a federal employee or if you're on federal land or doing some kind of federal, something that's run by the federal government, that's the law that that runs things rather than the ADA. Public accommodations for Title III. Again, that was Title II that we went over with state and local government services. Title III, public accommodations. So that's places that offer goods and services that are open to the public. So in a word, businesses. This is businesses. Restaurants, bars, hotels, bowling alleys, and kind of crucially here, hospitals and doctors' offices are also covered under Title III. Again, doesn't apply to employment. So the people that work there are still covered under Title I. But the hospitals and doctors' offices I wanted to highlight in particular because that you do have a right, again, to have your service animal with you. We're talking service animal, not emotional support animal for these two, for ADA Titles 2 and 3. Excuse me. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can go everywhere with the service animal. So if you're in a restaurant, you can't go back into the kitchen with it. If you're at a hospital, you can't go into some place that needs to be sterile, like say an operating room with it. You can go into like the waiting area. You should be able to go into most places where you would meet with your doctor. It's the only exception is those places that need to be kept sterile and clean for health or safety reasons. Title II and Title III, couple of just compare and contrast things here. We have a few slides on this. So worth noting, they do have the same service animal definition. Again, Title II is in the regulations, so that's a little bit more solid. Title III, though, is still in the guidance from the Department of Justice, and that's pretty solid too. A lot of courts have looked at it and given that same service animal definition to both. So you have a service animal under one, you're going to have a service animal under the other. Title II does have some extra protections, though. The big two ones are first one is the big one is miniature horses. So I said earlier that the service animal definition applies to dogs. Title II actually does have something in there for miniature horses. That was removed from Title III not too long ago, but Title II, a miniature horse could be considered a service animal. The other differences, or the other big difference rather, is in terms of damages. So that's, say something goes wrong, you need to sue someone. What are you going to do? Title II will allow you to recover actual like monetary damages. So say you get emotional support damages, out-of-pocket damages, things like that. Title III, the only remedy that you can get is an injunction, which is a court order telling someone to do something. So Title III, say someone excludes you from their business because of your service animal. The only remedy that you can get under Title III is a court order telling that person they can't do that again. You can get attorney fees too, but that's it under Title III. Worth noting here that there is a state law in Arizona that allows for some damages to be recovered under what would be Title III. And we'll go over that in the state law section, but under the federal law, that's a big difference. The other big difference, again, is that Title III, as I just kind of mentioned, does have a state law kind of equivalent, I guess, that applies to Arizona. Title II really doesn't. There's a state law that covers the physical accessibility of state and local government buildings, but it doesn't go as far as Title II that says, you know, all the services, programs, or activities are covered. Title II still applies because it's a federal law, so no worries on that front. But I want to point that out that, you know, some states do have a little bit of extra protection in the way that for Title III, you have a little bit of extra protection in Arizona in that you can get damages, but there's no extra protection for Title II in Arizona. So the service animal definition, again, dog that has been individually trained to do work or perform tasks for an individual with a disability. Does not include emotional support animals. No miniature horses for Title III. It is in Title II. Worth noting that it has to be, the service animal has to be under the control of the handler. So what does that mean? Does it need to be leashed? No, it doesn't. It just needs to be under your control, whether it could be by a leash, could also be by a voice command. It could be, if it's intermittently leashed and the dog needs to be off leash to perform some duty, that's fine. And this is a federal law, so this supersedes any state and local law, any leash law that is on top of that. Generally, service animals have to be able to accompany people with disabilities in all areas of the facility where the public is allowed to go. And crucially, the last one, the service animal can be trained by the individual. There's no official registration that's required under the ADA. Worth noting, the dog also does not have to wear a vest. It doesn't need to have any kind of marking to show that it's a service dog. It's all, it can be individually done. A note on the questions, I guess. If you have a service dog, you go to somewhere that's covered by Title II or Title III, what are they allowed to ask you? There are exactly 2 questions that those people are allowed to ask when they're looking at whether they want to let you in or not. Number 1, is this dog a service dog, right? Is it a service dog required because of a disability? You say yes to that, assuming it's true. And then number 2, what work or task has the dog been trained to perform? So you say, yes, this is a service dog. He alerts me to seizures when I'm about to have a seizure. Yes, this is a service dog. He alerts me when my blood pressure is low or my blood sugar is low and I need to take some medication. Something like that, and that's it. Those are the only questions they're allowed to ask you. You answer those questions. The law says, the ADA says, they have to let you in.
10 minutes.
All right, 10 minutes. We got a 10-minute warning. They are not allowed to ask. Anyone at those types of places are not allowed to ask. They're not allowed to ask about your disability. What's your disability? No. They can't ask for medical documentation. They can't ask for a special identification card. They can't ask that the dog be wearing a vest. Can't ask for training documentation. All that stuff is not allowed. And then the other big thing that's not allowed is asking the dog to demonstrate its ability to perform the work or task. And that makes sense because, say, what if it is a dog that detects when your blood sugar is low? You can't do that on demand, on command. You can't just magically make your blood sugar crash. So when can a service animal be asked to leave from either of these places? 2 situations. Either 1, the dog is out of control and you're not taking effective action to control it, or number 2, it's not housebroken. Worth noting that if you are kicked out of a place for either of those reasons, they have to let you or give you the opportunity to come back in without the dog with you. Some big reasons that are not allowed that happen a lot. Again, allergies or fear of dogs, doesn't fly. Food being sold or prepared. So say restaurants and grocery stores, again, you still can't go into like the kitchen or something, but if it's somewhere that the general public is allowed to go, then yes, you're allowed to go there with your service dog. They're not allowed to say no pets allowed, therefore no service dog, because a service dog is not a pet. State and local leash laws, again, do not apply. And breed restrictions, big kind of one to note there. That also comes up in the Fair Housing Act context a lot. Breed restrictions do not apply to service animals. The Air Carriers Access Act, this is my least favorite law on here because I don't think that it gives very good coverage for service animals. So let's run through that really quick. So this was updated December 2020 when they kind of made it. It wasn't great before then, but they made it worse, I think, by my definition. So a service animal, basically the same definition as the ADA. It's a dog, regardless of breed or type, that's individually trained to do work or perform tasks for the benefit of a qualified individual with a disability. A couple extra words there, but for the most part, still the same as the others. Worth noting again, emotional support animals are not covered by the ACAA. That is a change from December 2020. People used to be able to take emotional support animals with them on flights, but now they cannot. Well, I should say now it's up to the airline. The airline can still allow it, just like the airline can still allow pets. But the law does not cover that. The law doesn't require them to allow you to take an ESA. Airlines also, in addition to this stuff, can require, number one, for the service animal to be leashed. That applies to any service animal, even if it typically is off leash to do its job. Because of this weird ACAA law, they can require you to leash your dog while it's on the plane. You can have two service animals max per individual, and they can require the service animal to fit within the foot space on the plane. Worth noting that they're not required to upgrade you to say first class or something if your service animal will not fit with you in your seat. In the updated guidance, one of the things that drives me crazy is that they can also include, the airlines can include two forms. One of those forms they can require for any flight that you take that basically attests to the animal's good behavior. The other is only for flights that are 8 hours or longer. And that requires you to basically vouch that your service dog, your service animal can either hold its bladder that long, or not use the restroom that long, or relieve itself in some sanitary way so that the dog can get on the flight. But that first form about attesting to the animal's training and good behavior drives me crazy because there's a line on that form that says, like, what's the training that your service dog has had? Like, list the training organization and list the contact info. So think back a couple slides ago where I said, okay, everyone has a right to train their dog on their own under the ADA. That's also true for the Air Carriers Access Act. They just didn't bother like writing that or making any indication that that would be the case in that form. So can you train your own service dog if you're going to fly with it? Yes, absolutely yes. And if you want to know the actual quote from this, it comes from the final service animal rule comments. So the service animal rule is the final rule that was promulgated by the Department of Transportation in December 2020. That's the one that made those changes that I was referring to earlier. And when the government does that, when they promulgate a new regulation like that, they have what's called a notice and comment period where they basically release the regulation for whoever wants to comment on it to say, look, what issues do you see with this? And then the agency will take those questions, those comments, and kind of respond and say, okay, well, so-and-so, whatever organization or whatever person raised these concerns, here's our response to that. So this came up in that notice and comment period. Can people train their own service dogs? And the official answer from the Department of Transportation, again, they're the ones who wrote the rule, is quoted right here. The rule does not require service animal users to incur the cost of training by third-party schools or organizations. Service animal users are free to train their own dogs to perform a task or function for them. So that's in the final rule comments. That's from the Department of Transportation. It's just not at all apparent on that form that can be required. So I have heard this come up already a few times. I suspect it will come up many more times because again, that form is, I think, very confusing. And a lot of people, I think a lot of airline employees who don't know the ACAA are going to look at that form and say, it says you need to list a training organization and you didn't do it, so we're not going to let you on. If that happens, this is the go-to, is this service animal rule. It's linked right there for that exact reason. Rehab Act, I kind of covered a little bit before, just sort of worth mentioning here. That's the ADA equivalent for the federal government, as well as contractors for the federal government. So if you're a federal worker or a contractor who receives federal money, and this trickles all the way down to, say, students who receive like federal grants or any institutions of higher learning, say colleges, things like that. If they receive federal money, or if they have students who receive federal grants, that also gets the Rehab Act in there. Basically any entities that receive federal money. So Pell Grants, the ones from schools, federal programs run by local governments. So think like Section 8, it's a federal program, but it's the local governments that kind of implement it. Those are all still covered by the Rehab Act. It largely mirrors the ADA. Sometimes both laws will apply. If it's say something that's run by a local government but funded by the federal government, you would get protections from both laws. Again, I didn't go through anything in really detail for the Rehab Act because it's very similar to the ADA. What documentation can the airlines require for the Air Carriers Access Act? I should probably say I mentioned the Rehab Act right here because airports typically are federal property. So if you're in the airport, then your service dog could be subject to a different law than when it's on the plane, when it's subject to the Air Carriers Access Act. So that's why the Rehab Act is kind of just stuck here in the middle of my ACAA part of this. So what documentation can airlines require? Again, those are the two things I went over earlier: the form attesting to the animal's health, behavior, and training, and the form that it can go on a long flight. The airlines are not permitted to require other documentation from a service animal user. So they can't ask for documentation of your disability, and they, again, cannot require registration of the service animal. Kind of going back to that slide 2 slides ago. When can they deny transport to a service dog? Well, if it violates safety requirements, if it's too large or heavy, if it poses a direct threat, same kind of thing, if it causes a significant disruption, or notably, if it's prohibited from exiting or entering the destination or the U.S. territory or foreign country or whatever. So if you're flying to, I don't know I don't know what country I could pick on here. Let's say Scotland. You're flying to Scotland, and Scotland has a law where they don't allow service animals. I'm sure they don't, but just for the purposes of, a hypothetical here, then the plane could say, look, we're not going to take your service dog because once it gets to Scotland, we're not going to be able to do anything with it. You can't go outside of the plane.
Yeah, 1 minute.
All right. And then a few notes on state law. We do have a state law that covers service animals in training. That's for public accommodations, but it has to be with the trainer or the person with a disability. Service animal does include miniature horse under Arizona state law. And that again applies to Title III. So Title II had miniature horse in there. Title III has miniature horse, the Arizona state law equivalent of Title III has miniature horse on there. And then again, the money damages that are allowed for either. There's a law against fake service animals as well. It's basically a misdemeanor, as well as another kind of quirky law that says a zoo or wild animal park, like Arizona, I would assume, can prohibit a service animal from any area where the service animal may come in direct contact with animals contained in the zoo or animal park. As far as complaint options, these are all the different places where if you want to file an administrative complaint, you can do it. The federal options are on the left. Those are all of the federal agencies that oversee each of those laws. And then on the right, everything with an asterisk is something where you can also file with the Arizona Attorney General's office if you want to file on the state side. And that will dual file a second complaint with whatever corresponding federal agency has jurisdiction over that law. A couple other resources here. Some of the things that I went over, that HUD assistance animal guidance is the top one on here. If you are looking to request a service or assistance animal as a reasonable accommodation in housing, that's a great resource. a few other things about, service animals in the workplace, some FAQ for the Air Carriers Access Act, and then frequently asked questions about service animals and the ADA for just a few of the other things that I may not have covered quite in detail. And then I also have to give the spiel about ACDL. We're a public interest law firm and the designated protection and advocacy system for people with disabilities in Arizona. This is our mission statement. Basically, we provide free legal services to people with disabilities. We cannot take every case that we get just due to lack of resources, but if you have an issue, particularly with service animals for any of these laws, and it's in Arizona, you can go to our website, azdisabilitylaw.org, and file an intake, request our services to see if we can help you out. You can also follow us on social media to get a bit more info and keep up to date on what it is that we are up to. And I think that's just about my time. Jason gave me the 1 minute warning slightly over a minute ago, so I've blown past it. But if we have any questions, we can run through those now.
Yeah, so see, Michelle asked, have you worked with any tribes regarding service animals? I'm not sure what she was referring to with that though.
So I'm thinking that you're talking about Indian tribes. And I have had that come up. Indian tribes are different. So that's a big deal in Arizona. First of all, worth noting that any state law can't touch the Indian tribes. They have tribal land, they have their own laws. State law can't do anything with it. When it comes to the federal law, the ADA, that's messy when it comes to whether that applies to Indian tribes. The short answer to that is basically that it's a little unclear as to what rules apply. But if you are subjected to discrimination on tribal land, assuming it's an entity that's like owned by the tribe, like I don't know, say Talking Stick, the casino or the hotel, you cannot sue that tribe under the ADA, but you can file a complaint with the Department of Justice, the U.S. Department of Justice. That's really your only remedy, just due to some quirky kind of constitutional law issues that are a little beyond the scope of what's going on here, but that's the bottom line of it. Those are your options.
Okay, MV asked, what about zoos? I've been told it's up to them to allow service dogs.
So zoos are covered by that state law that I'd put up on there, that they are allowed to exclude the service dog from anywhere where it would be in direct contact with the animals in the zoo. If it's not an area that has that meets that criteria, then the zoo is going to have a hard time making that argument. But yeah, those are a bit of a different category, I guess. Zoos and wild animal parks.
Yeah, I took Oren with me to an aquarium in Denver one time, and they had a tiger in there. Who knew an aquarium would have a tiger? But he freaked out, so I wouldn't take him to a regular zoo myself. So let's see, Lori Ann asked, what happens when two laws cross, like health laws prohibiting specific things in commercial kitchen versus dog considered as work equipment?
So that's a great question. Again, the service animal laws do not extend to places where it would be, where there's, I guess, a legitimate reason for excluding the dog for health and safety reasons. So I use like the kitchen example on that, and that's that's kind of regardless. If you're a patron at a place, you're not allowed to go back to the kitchen. But say even your job is that you are a cook in the kitchen, and you want to have a service animal with you, then you would do the reasonable accommodation, and the employer would come back and say, well, we can't have the service animal, we can't have any animal in the kitchen because it is it's a health and safety violation. That may be a legitimate reason for that employer to exclude the service animal. But again, this is all fact specific. So say you have a service animal that doesn't shed, you have a hypoallergenic service animal, and say the kitchen is set up such that the dog would not be anywhere where the something from the dog might end up in the food. That, you know, it's basically you've taken steps to mitigate any risk to the health and safety or the food contamination from the dog. Like, would it be reasonable under those circumstances? Maybe. Again, it's all, the ADA doesn't have like examples, or, well, it does have something that it doesn't have like a hard and fast rule of like, here's stuff that is okay, and here's a bunch of stuff that's not, because disabilities come in so many different shapes and sizes, and because jobs come in so many different shapes and sizes, and even service animals come in so many different shapes and sizes, that there's no way to make a bright line rule that just says, you know, this stuff is okay and this stuff isn't. It's all very fact specific and specific to the situation.
Can accommodation requests be denied because of dog allergies of another employee?
So great question. This one comes up all the time, where an employer will say, yeah, exactly that. We have other employees with allergies and we need to worry about them, so we're not going to give you your service animal. That typically, no, that's typically not an okay reason to just deny the service animal. What the employer should be doing in that situation is trying to balance basically the accommodation for the person who needs the service animal versus the accommodation for the person with allergies, because again, allergies can be a disability as well. The employer cannot just say, all right, well, we're basically gonna deny your service animal accommodation so that this other person can have their allergies taken care of, because that's two people with disabilities, both need some kind of accommodation in the workplace. The employer can't just have a blanket rule that, all right, well, we're going to give this person what they want and this other person not what they want. In that situation, some things that employers may look at are, say, like installing a good air filtration system to get rid of pet dander. Excuse me. Maybe stagger the working schedules or the work sites of the two different employees, assign them to different parts of the building. And there are a number of different kind of things that the employer can do to try to minimize the risk or the effects that, you know, having the dog would have on the allergies for the other employee. And that's what they're supposed to do, that balancing act, basically.
Yeah, with my experience, they have the person who's allergic to dogs on the other side of the building. And then with the fleet vehicles, they assign me my own car.
Oh yeah, yeah, there you go. That's exactly it. So you have your own car, so people with allergies are not in there and they're not around.
Right.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So Joanna asked, what about hotels regarding service animals?
So yeah, a hotel, again, is normally covered under Title III because it's a business that's open to the public, unless it's a long-term stay type of place. So yeah, a hotel is, since they're covered under Title III, they have to allow a service animal to stay with you in your hotel, even if they have a no pet policy. And you get the two questions. They get the two questions, same as everyone else.
Ken asked, how can people tell if a dog is a service dog or an emotional support animal if there's no need for certification, vest, etc.?
So that's a great question. When it comes to the, I guess you're getting at kind of could people misrepresent an emotional support animal as a service animal? That's why I noted that state law that makes it a misdemeanor to misrepresent a service animal as have a non-service animal that you're representing as a service animal. That is a misdemeanor in Arizona. It's not federally, and it's, depends on the state for that. But most of the time, if someone just has an emotional support animal that's not individually trained, think back to those reasons why someone could exclude a service animal from the premises of somewhere. So it's like if the dog is acting out, if the dog is not trained, if it's biting people, whatever, if it's barking at people, or at least excessively, and it's really causing a disturbance. Those are all kind of indicators that, all right, this is probably not a service animal, and the person could be asked to leave for those reasons. But yeah, you're right that there's no requirement that a service animal wear a vest or have official training criteria or something like that, or be registered. There's, no national service dog registry that's recognized by the ADA. Those do exist, but they're like third-party companies that are just, saying, we've come up with this criteria to say, this is what we consider a service dog to be. So if you meet this criteria, you can make it on our list of, certified service dogs for that reason. And that may help to be able to show that what you have is a service dog rather than an emotional support animal, but it's not required by the ADA.
Yeah, so even if a dog is not behaving like you would expect it to, it doesn't mean it's not providing a valuable service. It just may need more training.
Yes. And again, worth noting that service animals in training are covered by that state law in Arizona.
Yeah, I just want to let you know that Diane has her hand up, so if we can also take questions from the audience once we're done with that.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, this is Diane Schweitzer. I have filed against my HOA in a neighborhood that I just moved into. The district attorney's office, Attorney General's office is pursuing them under the Fair Housing Act. They refuse to make any accommodations. They try to remove me from the area. They were served the first week of July from the Attorney General's office because they reached out to Adam, the negotiator. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to meet with them because I don't have an attorney. The harassment continues. Last Friday, I went to the gym. They want my dog's HOA tag. I have to swipe him in. Is there any way I can, it's 6 months. And it's just continual harassment. And I have an investigator with the Attorney General's office, but I need another avenue to go after this association because they're out of control. They're pushing it back on me, saying if somebody confronts you, I have an email from the president of the board, you get their name and their card number and turn them into the Code of Conduct Committee. This doesn't work for me.
So, I want to be a little bit careful in my answer here, just because I can give kind of, a general overview of the law here, but I can't give legal advice. So I can't give anyone specific advice for their specific situation. So generally, I would tell you that retaliation is prohibited under the Fair Housing Act. It's prohibited under the ADA and like any of these other laws as well. For the purposes of your example, retaliation is, anytime that someone is engaged in a protected activity, they're not supposed to be experiencing adverse action because of that. So a protected activity is something like asking for a reasonable accommodation. It can be something like filing a complaint with the Attorney General. It can be filing a lawsuit. It can even be just voicing an opinion saying, I think that, whatever policy this is discriminatory, or I think even threatening to do any of those things. Like if I think that I'm going to go and file a lawsuit or file a complaint with the Attorney General, if whatever practice doesn't change, then yeah, the Fair Housing Act says that it's illegal for someone to take an adverse action against you because you've done any of those protected activities. So if that does happen, and it does, you can always, the Attorney General or HUD, they will take complaints for both discrimination and retaliation. If you have a complaint pending, they will always, or typically allow you to amend it to add different charges to it. So usually if someone is experiencing adverse actions, that is the way to address it.
Yeah, I addressed it at one of the board meetings. And right after I got done speaking, they raised up and put a new bylaw in a no pets area. So,
Okay, Corey, I'm going to jump in here real quick.
Sure.
Thanks a lot, man. I do the real quick introduction. Jeff Susskind is an Arizona native and experienced professional with a background in events and community building. She's currently the Chief Operating Officer for J. Kaiser Workspaces, a Tucson commercial furniture and interior design firm. She started a career in the hospitality industry and then moved into the social service industry. Jess has had experience working with all types of people. Jess has served as a board member for the Tucson Young Professionals for a year now, was recently named a board secretary. And she came on board right now to be able to share with us a scenario in her past with working with service animals. Jess, go ahead and come on.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Steve, for that quick intro. There were actually some conversation in the comments that are relevant to the story I'm going to tell about people misrepresenting service animals. So when I started my career in the hospitality industry, I worked as a server and a hostess at a restaurant, and we had a regular customer who came in all the time and never had a dog with her. And then all of a sudden she started bringing this little Chihuahua. And the first time she brought it, we asked, you know, like, is that animal a service animal the way that we were allowed to? And she told us yes, and that she had food allergies and he needed to like smell her food for her to make sure that she wasn't allergic to it, which that may or may not be a real thing that service animals are trained to do. I'm not sure. But it never seemed like a true story. And then she would let the dog sit on the booth next to her. And we tried to ask her to not allow the dog to do that. And she claimed that the dog needed to be close enough to the food to smell it. And so the booth allowed for that. But then she would let the dog climb onto the table. And so because she was allowing her animal to be on the table where we served food to the public, we did eventually have to ask her not to bring her dog anymore. So she stopped coming, which, you know, we weren't super upset about. But yeah, so I think that that's an example of what some of you are talking about in the comments of people misrepresenting a service animal. I mean, it may or may not have been a true situation, but either way, she was taking advantage of us allowing her to have her dog with her in the restaurant.
Yeah, it's a great story, a great point. And I think actually to your point, if you look at the guidance documents, I believe for Title II and Title III, it may have been in the Q&A, the ADA Q&A thing that I had cited in the slide on here, but they give specific examples of when a service dog can be asked to leave, or, you know, when it's too much. And I'm pretty sure that one of the examples they give is like a dog cannot, if you have a restaurant, you have to let the dog into the restaurant, but if the dog is sitting at the table, you can kick it out, basically. That a dog cannot be, a person with a service animal can request to have it into the restaurant, but cannot require that it sit at the table with them. I believe that's a specific example that they used in that guidance.
Yeah. And that our management was like hesitant to ask her not to bring her dog or ask her to leave, because we were just worried about like what was protected and what wasn't when it came to service animals. We had another customer who came in pretty regularly who was blind, and he had a seeing eye dog who he would bring, but the dog would just, you know, calmly lay under the table. And in some cases you wouldn't even notice he was there. So like that was fine. And we were obviously supportive of that, but this situation was just so different, and like came to a place where ultimately we were like, yeah, no, your dog can't be on the table. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Jess.
Of course.
I want to thank, first of all, Corey, thank you very much for your time in the presentation today. And Brenda, thank you for being the moderator. We really appreciate it. This webinar was brought to you by several different organizations, and I have to thank them. The Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities at the U of A, the Institute for Human Development at Northern Arizona University, the Foundation for Service Dog Support, and the Arizona APSI chapter, and of course, the Arizona Center for Disability Law. Thank you guys very much for attending, and please make sure you take a second and fill out our survey. We want to appreciate our ASL and CART interpreters for being here too. Thank you very much and have a fantastic Wednesday.
Thank you for your time, everyone. It's good to be here, and thank you for having me to present. Hope it was informative.
It was quite a very active chat.
Have a nice day. Thanks
Yeah.
for the information.
Is there any way to get questions in the chat answered that weren't answered? Maybe if you guys keep going on video and then send the recording out to everyone.
We do have a record of it, and we'll try to get through those as we can. We definitely will.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.